Welcome to Game Crunch, your weekly video game podcast. My name's Mike Anastasia, and that's it today. Got a strange episode for you. So here's the deal, folks. So when Brandon and I went to record this week, he ended up having a family emergency, and we were not able to record that day. So everyone's okay, which is good, but because of the holiday week, kind of left us on a tight schedule to re-record, and there just wasn't time. So it's just me this week. We've been around for 11 years. We've had lots of episodes and lots of different types of episodes, and somehow 11 years later we just found ourselves a new type episode, solo episode. So I will try to make this for you as interesting as possible. I just can't fathom not having a week without a podcast episode. Like, it's just, I know we've had technical issues and maybe not posted on time, but there's always been an episode for every week since we've started. So this one's going to be a solo episode, but hey, I got things to talk about, I hope. So let's get into it. So what's our hot story of this week? Well, it is Beyond Good and Evil 20th Anniversary Edition. I told you I was getting this last week. I had already downloaded it, but I hadn't played it yet because it had not released until then. So I'm going to tell you about it now. And listeners, for those of you that are not familiar, Beyond Good and Evil, probably one of my all-time favorite games. It is a kind of a Legend of Zelda style game. You're not really dungeons, but kind of like similar kind of areas with some puzzles to go through and solve, kind of a boss at the end, some items to get to proceed through. So you do have kind of, that kind of similarities there. Beyond Good and Evil is also known too because it's got a kind of a photography element for it. It's one of the main sources of income for you in the game, doing photography. Story-wise, it's all got relevant. You were just the background is basically the planet that you live on. Hillis is under attack by these aliens. Hillis is a diverse planet that's full of, they have humans, but they have lots of humanoid-like creatures. When I say humanoid, I mean like, pig people, cow people, goat people. They have all sorts of, different forms of life there. And because this planet is in, real concern for an extinction level event, you were getting paid to photograph some of the species that are on the planet, kind of as like a documentation of everything that's been going on. So you have that role, and kind of how you get pulled into this mess. The DOMs, these are this kind of this bad actors in this game. They're attacking your planet. You run this orphanage of children, kind of like oversee them, and you're trying to protect them, and you get pulled into it. There's some secrets going on behind the scenes, and they want you to investigate it more. You're being hired as a photojournalist. So that's where it starts. So there's a whole bunch of different things that are going on during the course of the game, but there's lots of interesting things to be said. So what do you need to know about this game? Well, first, it is a remaster of a 2003 game. So a lot of games from that era I feel like have some similar elements to them, and this definitely is kind of one of those. It has kind of a very cartoony, actiony style. A lot of those stealth elements that we saw a lot of in this era. So you have a bunch of that stuff. What else do you need to know? Music, excellent. Probably one of the best soundtracks of a game I've ever played. So that's still good. Graphically, game looks better than obviously it did when it came out. So that's good. That's what you're hoping. Definitely more normal resolution. It does seem to have maybe a little bit of frame rate issues here and there. They did just put out a patch I saw. I don't really know if it addressed that or not. It did seem mildly better when I played it, but I hadn't gone through much more since the patch update yet. What else? There is more load times, I feel like. I don't know if it's just a matter of in this version of the game they show like a loading bar, so it's a little bit more obvious. But I do feel like I see them a lot more, feel like I'm waiting a lot more than I had in the past. So I don't know if that's kind of a version of this game. Also, too, I feel like the controls are a little shaky. I don't know if it's because of how they remapped it. You do have the option to play with classic controls, but I don't think that would fix the problem. They just kind of seem a bit stiff, is probably the best way to put it. Maybe that's more representative of that era of games still, but that definitely seemed to be something that I noticed for them. Also, just in terms of quality of life stuff, this game really made me feel like I was missing out on motion controls. Sounds silly, but especially when I was in photography mode, you're trying to do those kind of like fine-tune movements to get the perfect shot. Just really felt like it was missing because it would have been just so easy. And I guess I'm just so used to it, literally everything, using it for just kind of fine-tune controls now. Seems like it would have been a nice kind of easy quality of life win there. They've also done something weird with the save system here. I mean, they do have like an auto save system that's there. The game previously made you use discs to save, which you don't have to do anymore. Like it seems to auto save quite frequently and still giving you the option to use it. But the game really doesn't tell you to save or how to use it or anything. It just kind of, it's like a relic of the past, just kind of left there. So you got that going on. What else? Anything else that I've kind of thought was, an opportunity here? Definitely, like I said, there may be some more quality of life stuff they could have done. It's decent. It is definitely a decent remastered. Not the best one you're gonna get, especially when we're talking, like we've been talking about RPGs over the last couple of months. There's been some great remasters that have come out all over the last year, really. Even Metroid Prime Remastered, something else from that generation. That's fantastic remaster. Like I said, this one decent. It's playable. I don't think it makes it any worse. It does introduce some new issues, but it fixes some too. So I would say it's definitely seems to be decent. And overall, the game's fantastic. So if that's the reason to do it, it's a fantastic game and a decent remaster. So give it a try. And another thing I'm going to talk about this week, which, lucky you, I was not planning on it. Also, lucky you, I'm going to have to talk about it again next week. Anyways, but I picked up Balatro. I know Brandon has been asking me about this game for months, as you may remember, which is why you're going to end up having to hear me talk about it again, as well as Beyond Good and Evil as well. So, obviously, kind of want him to be in the loop, but I'm sure both of these games will be going next week as well. So, Balatro, which is our best guess on how to pronounce it. If you remember, we talked about it a couple months ago. Brandon had played it. It is a roguelite kind of poker game. It's interesting, and because, as you know, I've been kind of stuck on Slay the Spire for a couple months, I was like, let me try another one of these roguelite card games. Let's see how that goes. So, I've had Balatro for a couple weeks now, so I've had a lot more time with it. It's not kind of like my initial impressions, but honestly, I don't like it as much as I would have expected. Don't get me wrong, I can see why people like it, and I think my issue with it is I just really don't like poker at its core. I think that's kind of its thing. I'm not. Poker just does not work well with my head. I don't know what it is. So sometimes finding some of these card things just is not as fluid to me as, something like Slay the Spire, where I'm like, I can see this kind of combo being set up or whatever. I just don't have that same feeling when I play poker. So there's that. But that said, even despite that, though, I did still have fun with it. Like, I do kind of like how they have these different challenges with each kind of round. Like, you kind of go into a round and it'll be like, this person you're playing against, they restrict the use of clubs. Anything with clubs, maybe you won't get any points for using anything with clubs in it. Or they might do something like, if you've already used a card, in kind of this round, you can't score on it again. They'll have kind of very different kind of challenges there. I really like those kind of things. And I like too, it's kind of got a robust store. You can get the jokers, which get you different ways to score. You can get planets, which are kind of like upgrades to the different poker hands. So it's like, oh, if you upgrade, I think it was Uranus, was two pairs. Two pair. Yeah, and that one, that's always kind of interesting too. Kind of gives you different ways to kind of strategize, even within like the poker hands, which I think is kind of cool. But with any roguelike, there is some unpredictability, which I think maybe is what is more difficult with this game. I think with something like, say, Slay the Spire, comparatively, I can make a deck, but if I could, I can kind of shift it towards things that are coming up, and I can more directly avoid things that might not work well with my deck. I have a lot more options there. This game, it does give you the option to pass certain rounds, which that might help if it's like, oh, this challenge might not work well with the deck that I've built. But that only works for certain ones. It's not avoidable for everything. And I feel like the kind of sometimes the penalties maybe for skipping around sometimes can be, it's not really a penalty. They actually kind of give you a bonus. You skip around and they're like, oh yeah, here you can have a joker or this or that. But you also then you miss out on the money and the other things. So there is kind of that trade-off there. The one time that I did it, I definitely felt it the next round, because each round is incrementally more points that you have to get. But the problem is, like I was just saying about these decks, a lot of times the decks that can be hardest challenge-wise are those boss ones, like whatever that last round is. And those are the ones that you can't avoid like that. And you can kind of go in with decks that are just not necessarily good for that or really built against it. So, but there seems to be enough variety that it all works well. So it seems to be good. And also, too, I'll say, compared to Slay the Spire, like a game of Balatro is a lot faster. Like a game of Slay the Spire might take an hour or more. Balatro, it seemed like it was half the time, if not even less. So, yeah, you can get through a lot more rounds a lot faster, but there's a trade-off between the two. I also think, too, I think there's something, too, maybe just about the music. I just not, doesn't suck me in, and it kind of distracts me, too. I think that pulls me out of it. I might have better experience with it if I had different music. I probably could just play my own, but, I'm just saying. But otherwise, I really do see why people do get addicted to it. Because when you do start getting it like right, when you're hitting those combos, then it gets real fun. Then you're like, oh my goodness, I'm getting so many points. This worked better than I expected. Oh, I got this new Joker. Let's see how this stuff works. But like I said, on the flip side, though, then too, it's that RNG. You never know what you're gonna get. Maybe it's gonna be good for your hand. Maybe it's gonna be not good for your hand. But I guess really it does come down to, that's what this type of game is. You never know. So I guess maybe really in reality, my issue with this game is more of the poker aspect of it. There's something that just kind of was not necessarily appealing to me. But I do still like it. And I would say odds are it probably will make something on my game of the year list. It's definitely good enough that it probably will still be hanging around there somewhere. So that's good. This week's pretty light in gaming news. Not much going on the news side of things. I think it's probably because we still did just come right off of, Summer Games Fest. A lot was going on last month in this kind of new E3-esque time period that we have. So there was a huge news dump there. So not much is trickling out now. Only thing I really saw was kind of, remotely worth discussing, I suppose, especially considering it's just me and I don't have even Brandon to bounce off of here. Apparently Netflix has decided to cancel their Horizon series that they were working on. They're not doing it anymore. I believe I read that it was being produced by Sony, so they may just go around and shop it around to someone else. They did do very well with The Last of Us on HBO, I feel like, we do like to dog on Horizon a bit, and I will. Don't worry, I will dog on it in a little bit again, anyways. But I do feel like it could be an interesting TV show or interesting like universe to have as a TV show. So it could work out really well, especially if you have someone that's looking for something ambitious. I saw someone suggest Apple. Their Apple also has been doing very well with a lot of their TV shows that are serialized like that and have, very story based. And also, too, they've been doing very well with sci fi. They have a bunch of different sci fi shows on there. Nothing video game related, though. So, hey, maybe this would be, up their alley. Well, I mean, I guess they did have that Tetris movie, which was fun, but different. So, that said, though, even if they did find someone that bites on it, this is not like The Last of Us or some of these other series that are getting turned into TV shows. Like a lot of these, the game name itself, is a big draw for it. People want to see Resident Evil, even if the TV show's horrible, like the Netflix one that they had last year, 2 years ago. You know, People want to see it. They like those kind of things. We like TV shows sometimes for our favorite game series, but again, we just don't really know anyone that's like, oh man, Horizon. Yeah, that's the series I really want to see more of. And I mean, don't get me wrong, TV shows weird enough, but that Lego game I still think is a whole different level of strange. But Sony has faith in it. Grill is a great studio. I wish them the best of luck with it. And definitely doesn't seem to catch my attention. But I applaud them for trying it, and I think anything that makes the video game industry a better place is a good thing. So makes it more all inclusive. Yes. But that is all I have news wise. I don't have anything else for you this week. At least nothing that I wouldn't want to talk through without Brandon here. So that is the news. What else do you need to know? Well, I can tell you some behind the scenes podcast stuff. Nothing too exciting. We're getting ready for, I'm sure you guys have probably noticed if you've been long-time listeners, we usually take a little bit of a vacation in August, so we'll be pre-recording episodes for that throughout the month. We'll already talked to Nick, so he will probably come back to talk with us about different things. I don't know, there's a couple different things I'm sure he'd like to talk about. Metroid Prime 4, he's definitely excited for. So that's coming up. Also, too, I think it's almost tradition at this point, but we always kind of do our kind of halfway to Game of the Year kind of talk in July. I honestly was thinking about it today. I'm like, I feel like we talk about Game of the Year a lot, but it has been like 6 months since we've done it. So I guess, it hasn't been that it has been long enough. It's not like we're talking about it every week. It's been weeks and months. So there's that. And I think it's a nice kind of way to recap, where we've been so far this year and where we're going this year. I definitely have had some nice surprises this year. And I've had kind of as much as Brandon harps on, me to play more indie games, I actually have had kind of a packed beginning of the year in terms of indie stuff so far. And new stuff like Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. I was just saying last episode that I absolutely love that game. It's fantastic. Highly recommend it. So there's that one. We're just talking about Balatro. I said maybe not necessarily my favorite one that I played, but definitely I can see why people really like it, and I can see why people can get addicted to it. And it's not so odd, but I do find myself still wanting to play it. So definitely is a hook there. It's not as much of a hook for me as say Slay the Spire, which I've keep going back to, even though I've already quit it like 4 times. So yeah, there's something about that game as well. And then we were talking about, we'll be obviously talking about things that are going to be coming out, later this year. Obviously Nintendo had, a very good direct a couple weeks ago. I'm excited for that new Legend of Zelda. I think it's Echoes of Wisdom, something like that. That looks pretty cool. Mario and Luigi Brothership. I tried to call it Bromance, Mario and Luigi Bromance. That would probably also work. I'm pretty sure it's Brothership. That looks like it's a lot of fun. Still kind of amazed at how well they were able to replicate that art style in 3D. It looks fantastic. So that looks really good. And obviously there's a bunch of other things that are coming out that with a Nintendo World Championship game that's kind of like NES Remix that comes out in about a month. That looks like it could be pretty interesting. I also think we're going to end up with a bunch of surprises later this year. Probably in, I think, like September. Nintendo does like to shadow drop, things around that time. It's also like when they like to expand NSO and bring more games into that mix. So we might see some of that. Although we do have the Switch 2 coming up early next year. So there is that. Anyways, what else? Yeah, so we got podcast vacation coming up in a couple weeks. So then I'll have some trip stuff to talk about when I get back as well. I guess this time I can tell you I'm going to Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. So places I've never been before, so it'll be really interesting. Anyways, I guess with all that said, I don't think I have much more to say. I've already spent a lot of time making an AI song for the outro, so I hope you guys enjoy it. I think it was fun. I think I like it. So you got that to look forward to. And well, I guess we got to do all our closing stuff. So thank you everyone for listening to us tonight. Or I guess thank you everyone for listening to me tonight. You know where you can find all of our episodes. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Amazon, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast episodes. We also have the website game-crunch.com, which has all of our old episodes on it. And if you want to reach out to us, you can send us an email at gamecrunchcast@gmail.com. Normally, this is where I would ask Brandon and Nick for their final thoughts, but there's no one here. Final thoughts are empty. You just got me, and you just had 20 minutes of my final thoughts. So, with that said, my name is Mike Anastasia. You can find me online. I'm Clash of Penguin there or on your favorite gaming console. And until next week, game on.
Bright lights call my name, pixel dreams all around. Monsters to defeat, no limits to be found. Controllers in my hand, Game Crunch here we stand. Quests and heroes rise, worlds unfold, no disguise. Game on, we dive into the night. Game on, everything feels just right. Level up, let's go, mysteries to be found. Hidden treasures glow, new challenges abound. Starships fly and dragons soar through the enchanted door. Game Crunch, we're never bored. We'll play forevermore. Game on, we dive into the night. Game on, everything feels just right. Level up, let's go, mysteries to be found. Hidden treasures glow, new challenges abound.
Well, you didn't think I would not do one of these, right? I mean, to be fair, I mean it's been I don't know what am I on 576 episodes or whatever. Like it's been a tradition since the beginning, so I can't not do it. So, but I mean, I guess because we're not actually recording, we didn't record. There's no recording session. So this is not like an outtake. Like I'm recording this specifically for this section, which is different than what I usually do, which is take like an outtake from during the episode. So I don't know. Sometimes those outtakes are fun. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes I'm grasping for things to find. Some things are super obvious. Sometimes I take ones from other weeks and plant them into that week's. If I have sometimes two really good ones in one week, you might hold on to it for another episode. Very rare. Usually those clips are from the week that they're on, but it does happen from time to time. So there you go. That's your behind the scenes after episode outtake. You're welcome. Game on.